Number 1. Jeffrey Lundren. Jeffrey Lundren was born on May 3, 1950, in Independence, Missouri, right in the heart of where the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had its roots. That's the Reld's Church, an offshoot of Mormonism, now called the Community of Christ. He grew up in a strict religious family, with a father who was abusive and controlling, which probably shaped a lot of his later behavior. Lundgren served in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam era, but he didn't see combat. He was stationed stateside. After his service, he married Alice Keeler in 1970, and they had 4 kids together: Damon, Jason, Kristen, and Caleb. In the early 1980s, Lundgren got involved deeply with the Reld's Church. He worked as a senior temple guide at the historic Kirkland Temple in Ohio, which is a big deal for that faith since it's tied to early Mormon history. He was charismatic, knew his scriptures inside out, and started leading his own Bible study classes. But things shifted in 1984 when the Reld's Church decided to allow women into the priesthood. Lundgren saw that as a betrayal of true doctrine, too liberal, and he started pulling away. He began preaching his own interpretations, claiming he had visions from God and was a prophet. His teachings got more extreme. He talked about the end times, the need for absolute obedience, and how his followers had to prepare for a holy war or something like Zion's camp to take back the temple. By 1987, the church fired him from his temple job for misconduct, like mishandling funds and his radical views. That's when he really formed his own group. About 20 to 30 people followed him, mostly former Reld's members disillusioned with the main church. They pooled their money, sold possessions, and moved into a rented farmhouse on Chillicothe Road in Kirkland, Ohio. Life there was communal but harsh. Lundgren ruled like a dictator. He made everyone hand over their paychecks to him, controlled what they ate, who they talked to, even marriages. He armed the group with guns, had them do military-style drills in the woods, preparing for what he called the battle for Zion. He claimed God spoke to him directly, and if anyone questioned him, they were accused of sin or lack of faith. One family that got sucked in was the Averys, Dennis, his wife Cheryl, and their 3 daughters, Trina, who was 15, Rebecca, 13, and little Karen, just 7. They came from Missouri in 1987, sold their home to join Lundgren's group because they believed in his prophecies. Dennis worked hard, Cheryl helped with chores, and the girls were homeschooled with the other kids. But Lundgren started seeing them as a problem. He said Dennis wasn't committed enough, that the family was holding back financially or spiritually. In reality, the Averys were average folks, not as fanatical as some others, and Lundgren might have resented them for not worshiping him fully. He began preaching about blood atonement, an old Mormon idea where some sins require death to be forgiven, though the main churches rejected it long ago. Lundgren twisted scriptures to say God commanded a sacrifice to purify the group before they could see the divine or go to the wilderness. By early 1989, the plan solidified. Lundgren told a core group of followers, his son Damon, Ronald Luff, Daniel Kraft, Richard Brand, and others, that the Averys had to die as a human sacrifice. He said it was like Abraham and Isaac, but this time, the knife wouldn't be stayed. They dug a 6-by-7-foot pit in the barn's dirt floor around April 12 or 13, secretly at night. On April 17, 1989, Lundgren invited the Averys to dinner at the farmhouse, acting normal, saying they were all preparing to head out to the wilderness soon. After eating, the women and children stayed inside while the men led the Averys one by one to the barn under false pretenses, like checking supplies. First was Dennis. They overpowered him, bound his hands and feet with duct tape, gagged him, and carried him to the pit. Lundgren shot him twice in the back with a .45 caliber semi-automatic Colt pistol. Then Cheryl shot 3 times in the torso. Trina came next, shot once in the head and twice in the body. Rebecca in the back and thigh. Last was Karen, the youngest, shot in the head and chest. Each time, they placed the body in the pit, covered the mouths and eyes with tape too. It was methodical, cold. The gunshots were muffled by a chainsaw running outside to cover the noise. After, they filled the pit with dirt, lime to speed decomposition, and stones. The group went back inside, prayed, and acted like nothing happened. Lundgren said it was God's will, and now they were pure. The next day, April 18th, FBI and local police showed up at the farm investigating tips about Lundgren's armed group and possible plans to attack the temple. Everyone denied it, said they were peaceful. The agents left without searching the barn, and the group packed up and fled to West Virginia, camping in the mountains near Davis. They lived in tents, the men kept training with weapons, and Lundgren took a second wife, Katherine Johnson, which caused more tension since polygamy was part of his teachings now. Larry Johnson, her husband, got upset. By October, they moved to Missouri, but the group was fracturing. Followers like Keith Johnson and Shar Olson left, disillusioned. In December 1989, Larry Johnson contacted authorities about the murders. On January 3, 1990, Kirkland police dug up the barn and found Dennis's body. The next day, the rest. The bodies were decomposed but identifiable, with the duct tape still on. A massive manhunt started. Lundgren and his inner circle were arrested on January 7 near the California-Mexico border after a standoff. 13 in total faced charges. The trials were huge in Ohio. Lundgren's was in August 1990 in Lake County. Prosecutors showed how he planned it. The pit, the guns. Lundgren testified, unrepentant, saying he was a prophet, that God told him to do it through visions and scripture like Chitoni plates he claimed to see. He quoted Bible verses to justify the killings. The jury didn't buy it. After 2 hours, they convicted him on 5 counts of aggravated murder and 5 of kidnapping. On September 21, he got the death penalty for each murder, to be served consecutively. His wife Alice was convicted of conspiracy and got 5 life terms, basically 150 years. Son Damon, who helped bind the victims, got 120 years to life. Ronald Loof, the recruiter who lured the Averys, got 170 years. Others like Susan Loof got 7 to 25 years for lesser roles. Some testified against Lundgren for lighter sentences. A few, like Katherine Johnson, served time and got out earlier. Lundgren spent 16 years on death row at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, appealing everything. He claimed insanity, but experts said he knew right from wrong. He argued the death penalty was cruel because of his weight, over 300 pounds, might complicate lethal injection, but courts rejected it. On October 24, 2006, at 10:26 a.m., he was executed by lethal injection. His last words were in Hebrew, something like, "For I know my Redeemer lives," from Job. No apologies. Witnesses included family of the Averys and some media. The Averys were just a normal family looking for spiritual truth, and Lundgren destroyed them. Dennis was 49, a hard-working farmer type, Cheryl 46, devoted mom, the girls' innocent kids. Their bodies were exhumed and buried properly back in Missouri. The farmhouse barn was demolished in 2007 to erase the site. Lundgren's cult showed how charisma and twisted faith can lead to horror. He manipulated people into murder, all while living off their money and labor. In prison, he stayed defiant, writing religious tracts, claiming he was still a prophet. Ohio executed him, closing that chapter, but the scars in Kirkland remain. That's the story of Jeffrey Lundren, a man who turned religion into a weapon and paid the ultimate price. Number 2. Edward Edwards. Edward Edwards was born Charles Murray on June 14, 1933, in Akron, Ohio. His mother, Lillian Myers, shot herself in the stomach while pregnant with him, but he survived, though she died 5 years later from that same wound or related issues, depending on the account. Edwards claimed in his later writings that he never knew his father and ended up in a Parma Heights orphanage run by strict nuns who beat him regularly. He ran away as a kid, got into petty crimes like theft and burglary, and by his teens, he was in reform school. In 1949, at 16, he joined the Marines but went AWOL after a few months, leading to a dishonorable discharge. He drifted, committing more robberies, and in 1952 he married a woman named Marlene Harmon, but that didn't last long amid his criminal life. By the mid-1950s, Edwards was escalating. In 1955, he escaped from the Summit County Jail in Akron by shoving a guard and fleeing. He crisscrossed the country, holding up gas stations at gunpoint, never wearing a mask because he craved notoriety. He changed his name to Edward Wayne Edwards to evade capture. In Billings, Montana, he assaulted a couple during a robbery, beating them badly. His spree landed him on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list in 1961, one of the early ones. He was caught in Atlanta, Georgia on January 20th, 1962, after a tip. Convicted of armed robbery and interstate flight, he got 16 years in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in Kansas, then transferred to Lewisburg in Pennsylvania. In prison, Edwards played the model inmate, earning a GED and studying sociology. He was paroled in 1967 after serving about 5 years. Out free, he moved to Chicago, married Kay Hedderly in 1968, and they had 5 kids together: April, 2 other daughters, and 2 sons. They settled in places like Pennsylvania and Ohio. Edwards worked odd jobs, handyman, salesman, but always schemed. In 1972, he published an autobiography called Metamorphosis of a Criminal, the true life story of Ed Edwards, where he painted himself as a reformed bad boy turned straight. He went on speaking tours, lecturing about prison reform and his redemption. He even appeared on TV game shows. In 1972, he was on To Tell the Truth, where panelists guessed who the real ex-con was, and on What's My Line. Posing as a skydiver or something innocuous, he charmed audiences, hiding his dark side. But behind the facade, he was plotting murders. The first known killings happened on August 8, 1977, in Norton, Ohio, near Akron. Billy Lavaco, 21, from Doylestown, and his girlfriend Judy Straub, 18, from Sterling, were parked in a lover's lane at Silver Creek Metro Park. Edwards approached them, possibly posing as a cop or just ambushing. He forced them out of the car, made them lie face down, and shot each in the back of the head with a .22 caliber gun at close range. Lavaco died instantly, Straub too. Their bodies were found the next day by joggers. No robbery, no sexual assault evident, just execution style. The case went cold for decades. Police figured it was a random thrill kill or maybe tied to drugs, but no leads. Edwards lived nearby at the time, in a trailer in Deerfield, Ohio, but no one connected him. 3 years later, in 1980, Edwards struck again, this time in Wisconsin. On August 9th, Tim Hack, 19, and Kelly Drew, 19, sweethearts from Sharon, went to a wedding reception at the Concord House Hall in Sullivan, Jefferson County. Edwards was working security there that night. The couple stepped out for air around midnight and vanished. Their car was left in the lot. Searches turned up nothing for months. Then, on October 19, hunters found their decomposed bodies in woods 8 miles away. Hack had been stabbed multiple times in the chest and back. Drew was raped, strangled with her own pants, and had her throat slit. Semen on her clothing became key evidence later. Again, the case stalled. Suspects like a local sex offender were cleared. Edwards and his family abruptly left Wisconsin right after, moving to Pennsylvania, then Kentucky. His kids later recalled the sudden departure as suspicious. For years, Edwards kept up the family man act. He coached Little League, attended church, but abused his wife and kids verbally and physically, ruling with fear. He moved the family often to avoid debts or scrutiny. In the 1990s, they were in Ohio again. That's when he took in a foster son, Danny Law Gloeckner, born in 1971. Danny had a rough upbringing, bounced around homes, and Edwards adopted him informally around 1990. Danny idolized Edwards, even legally changing his name to Danny Boy Edwards in 1993. He joined the Army in 1994, served in Korea, but went AWOL in 1996 after Edwards convinced him to desert for some scheme. On September 7, 1996, near Burton, Ohio in Geauga County, Edwards lured Danny to a cemetery woods, saying they were hunting or checking something. There, he shot Danny once in the face with a shotgun, killing him instantly. Edwards had taken out a $250,000 life insurance policy on Danny months earlier, naming himself beneficiary. He reported Danny missing, but the body was found soon after by hunters. Edwards collected the insurance, but suspicion grew. No arrest then, case went cold. Edwards retired to a trailer park in Louisville, Kentucky, with Kay. He had health issues, diabetes, heart problems, leukemia, used a wheelchair and oxygen. But in 2007, Wisconsin cold case detectives reopened the Hack Drew murders. They developed a DNA profile from the semen on Drew's pants. They swabbed over 75 suspects. In June 2009, one of Edwards' daughters, April Bellaccio, saw a news story about the case and remembered her family working at the Concord House and fleeing suddenly. She tipped off police anonymously at first, then fully. Detectives went to Louisville, got Edwards' DNA from a cup he discarded. It matched perfectly. On July 30th, 2009, they arrested him at his trailer. Edwards, 76 and frail, initially denied everything, but cracked under interrogation. He confessed to the Hack Drew killings, describing details only the killer would know, like how he abducted them from the parking lot, drove them to the woods, assaulted Drew, killed Hack when he fought back. Then, to avoid Wisconsin's no death penalty, he confessed to the 1977 Ohio murders of Lavaco and Straub, saying he shot them because they disrespected him or something vague. Finally, in a bid for the death penalty, he said he wanted to die. He confessed to killing Danny Boy for the insurance money. He claimed no remorse, said he enjoyed the power. Trials followed quickly. In June 2010, in Jefferson County, Wisconsin, Edwards pleaded guilty to the Hack Drew murders, got 2 life sentences without parole. No trial, just sentencing. He showed no emotion as victims' families spoke. In August 2010, in Summit County, Ohio, he pleaded guilty to Lavaco and Straub, another life sentence, again cold demeanor. For the Danny Boy case, in Geauga County, Ohio, he went to trial in February 2011. Prosecutors detailed the insurance plot, the shotgun blast. Edwards testified, admitting it but saying Danny deserved it for being weak. On March 2nd, a 3-judge panel found him guilty of aggravated murder. On March 8, they sentenced him to death by lethal injection, set for August 31st, 2011. But Edwards didn't make it. On April 7, 2011, he died in the Corrections Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, from natural causes, complications of diabetes, and heart failure. He was 77. No last words of apology, he went defiant. Edwards' family was shattered. His wife Kay stood by him initially, but divorced him in prison. Daughter April, who turned him in, said it was to protect others, though it tore her up. His other kids disowned him. Victims' families got closure, but no real justice since he died free of execution. Lavaco's brother said every day since 1977 was hell. Drew's parents had died without answers. Edwards is buried in an unmarked grave in Ohio. Some theorists, like Detective John Cameron, link him to dozens more killings, the Zodiac, Black Dahlia, even John Benet Ramsey. But no evidence sticks. He's only convicted of these 5. He was a master manipulator, hiding in plain sight as a TV personality and dad, while slaughtering innocents for thrills and cash. That's Edward Edwards, a cold killer who played the system until the end. Number 3. George Brinkman Jr. George Brinkman Jr. was born on January 28, 1972, in Ohio, growing up in a troubled household marked by abuse from his father and instability. Details on his early years are sparse, but court records later revealed a childhood filled with trauma, including physical and emotional hardship that defense attorneys argued contributed to his mental health issues down the line. He had a brother who died by suicide in 2015, and his mother passed away in 2013, events that reportedly deepened his struggles with depression and other disorders. Brinkman dropped out of high school and drifted into manual labor jobs, like mechanics and furniture making. He had a minor criminal record starting in the 1990s, disorderly conduct in 1990, criminal mischief in 1991, passing bad checks in 1998, which landed him short stints in jail, but nothing violent until 2017. He battled homelessness for years, bouncing between friends' couches and odd jobs to get by. That's how he crossed paths with his victims. He relied on the kindness of people he knew, doing handyman work or house sitting to earn a little cash. One of those people was Suzanne Taylor, a 45-year-old real estate appraiser from North Royalton, Ohio. Brinkman and Suzanne had been friends since elementary school in Parma Heights, attending Valley Forge High School together. She was a single mom to 2 daughters, Taylor Pfeiffer, 21, a fashion design student at Kent State University who loved softball and worked at the campus store, and Kylie Pfeiffer, 18, about to start her sophomore year at Bowling Green State University, studying biology with dreams of becoming a forensic scientist. Kylie was involved in theater and would have turned 19 just a week after her death. Suzanne had let Brinkman stay at her home during his homeless spells, viewing him as a down-on-his-luck old acquaintance. He did chores around the house and saw her girls as surrogate daughters, but family members suspected he had unrequited romantic feelings for Suzanne, which might have fueled tension. On June 10, 2017, things turned deadly at the Taylor home on Royalton Road. Brinkman showed up, and an argument escalated, possibly over money or rejection, though he never fully explained a clear motive. He overpowered the 3 women, binding their wrists and ankles with duct tape or cords. He killed Suzanne first, stabbing her in the head and slitting her throat right in front of her terrified daughters. Then he smothered Taylor with a pillow until she stopped breathing, and strangled Kylie with a phone cord. In a bizarre act, he cut off some of Taylor's hair and scattered it around. He positioned their bodies face down on Taylor's bed, covered them with blankets to hide the scene, and left. The house was quiet, but the horror inside was unimaginable for a family that had just been living normal lives, Suzanne working her job, the girls excited about college futures. The next day, June 11, Brinkman headed to another place he knew well, the home of Rogel Jean John, 71, and his wife Roberta Bobby John, 64, in Lake Township, Stark County. Brinkman had known the Johns for over a decade. He dated Jean's daughter briefly, worked for Jean's phone book distribution business, and stayed close to the family, even joining them for holidays. Jean was a Vietnam War veteran, a Bowling Green State University grad who had a long career in newspaper circulation before starting his own company. Bobby was an educator, directing special services for local school districts, and both were active in their church, Mount Tabor United Methodist, and the Osnaburg Historical Society. They were kind folks, the type to help out friends in need. Brinkman was house-sitting for them while they vacationed, watching their deaf and blind dog. When they returned that afternoon, he helped unload their luggage, but an argument broke out over the dog's medication. Bobby accused him of neglecting the pet, and Jean questioned why his .45 ACP handgun was out of its box. Brinkman had found and loaded it earlier. He snapped, ordering them at gunpoint to the upstairs guest bedroom farthest from neighbors. They locked the door, but he shot through it to force entry. He fired 3 shots into Jean, hitting him in the chest and back. Bobby screamed, and Brinkman pistol whipped her, fracturing her skull. As she lay injured, he covered her head with a pillow and shot her twice, then smothered her to make sure she was dead. He propped pillows under Jean's body so he would be comfortable, a detail he later mentioned in his confession. He rifled through their wallets, taking $140, grabbed their cell phones, and fled. Again, no robbery was the main goal. It seemed like a burst of rage from a man unraveling. He dumped the gun, shell casings, bloody clothes, and phones along Interstate 77 in Summit County. The bodies were discovered quickly. On June 11, Taylor Pfeiffer's boyfriend went to the North Royalton house after she didn't respond to texts. He found the bedroom door shut unusually and called police. Officers arrived to the grim scene, the 3 women under blankets, bound and killed. Hair clippings linked Brinkman, who had been seen there recently. The next day, June 12, Jean and Bobby's son Jason couldn't reach his parents and checked on them. He found their bodies in the bedroom, also covered with blankets, and alerted authorities. Police connected the dots fast. Similar staging, Brinkman's ties to both families. They tracked his phone to an acquaintance's home in Brunswick, Ohio. That night, around 9:30 p.m., police surrounded the house, leading to a 9-hour standoff. Brinkman barricaded himself inside, armed, and even messaged a reporter on Facebook during the ordeal, hinting at his involvement. SWAT teams used a stun gun to take him down around 5:30 a.m. on June 13. He had items from the Johns' home on him, solid evidence. Bond was set at a staggering $75 million, reflecting the severity of the charges. In custody, Brinkman confessed almost immediately. Questioned by Stark County deputies and an FBI agent, he detailed the Johns' killings, describing the argument and how he shot them. He called the couple extremely kind, caring, and wonderful people who did not deserve to be killed by me. For the Taylors, he admitted binding and executing them methodically. He showed some remorse in statements, but prosecutors noted inconsistencies, like claiming Gene's first shot was accidental, when evidence showed he blasted through the door intentionally. Trials came in waves. For the Stark County case, the Johns murders, Brinkman pleaded guilty in October 2019, waiving a jury. Ohio law required a 3-judge panel for death penalty cases, judges Krissa Harnett, Kristen Farmer, and Taryn Heath. They heard evidence over a short trial, finding him guilty after just 30 minutes. At sentencing, defense presented mitigating factors: his abusive childhood, uncontrolled diabetes, aortic aneurysm, major depressive disorder, PTSD, borderline personality disorder, and substance abuse issues worsened by family deaths. Brinkman himself pushed for death, saying he didn't want mercy and deserved it. Victim impact statements were heart-wrenching. Bobby's sister called him a monster. Gene's granddaughter offered forgiveness but wanted answers. The panel sentenced him to death on October 4, 2019. The Ohio Supreme Court upheld it in July 2022, with Justice R. Patrick DeWine writing that the brutality outweighed mitigators, noting how Brinkman shot Gene multiple times and used various violence on Bobby. For the North Royalton triple homicide, Brinkman pleaded guilty on November 5, 2018, again waiving jury. Judges Peter Corrigan, Michael Shaughnessy, and Timothy McCormick found him guilty on November 26 after a mitigation hearing. On December 28, 2018, they sentenced him to death plus 47 years for other charges like kidnapping and abuse of corpses. Brian Pfeiffer, the girl's father, gave a powerful victim statement: "My girls were my everything. I am angry that George Brinkman took them from me, from everyone, from the world." Prosecutor Michael O'Malley called for execution, labeling Brinkman a mass murderer. But in July 2021, the Ohio Supreme Court vacated that conviction and death sentence, ruling the panel failed to fully explain that his guilty plea waived rights to confront witnesses and require proof beyond reasonable doubt. The case went back to Cuyahoga County. After pandemic delays, retrial started in 2022. Brinkman pleaded guilty again, and a new panel reheard evidence. In the May 2023 penalty phase, he made an unsworn apology: "I committed the murders. To the family and friends, I'm sorry. They didn't deserve what I did. I took away the opportunity to watch them grow, get old, have families. I know sorry will never be enough." Defense reiterated health and trauma factors, but judges found aggravating circumstances, like the calculated killings and family devastation, outweighed them. Brian Pfeiffer spoke again, holding photos of his daughters, saying life didn't make sense anymore. Suzanne's brother Ken Taylor said after, "I'm very, very happy. George Brinkman got exactly what he deserves. It never goes away. I think about them when I wake up, when I go to bed." On May 31, 2023, Brinkman was sentenced to death for the Taylors. Combined with the Stark County sentence, he's on death row at Ross Correctional Institution in Chillicothe, Ohio. His execution is set for September 23, 2026, though appeals could delay it. The Supreme Court fixed a minor error in the Stark sentencing, vacating post-release control on merged counts, but affirmed the death penalty. Brinkman's spree shattered two families connected only through him. The Taylors were buried together, their potential stolen. The Johns left a legacy of community service, their home now a painful memory for survivors. Brinkman sits in prison, his pleas for death perhaps a twisted form of accountability, but for the victims' loved ones, justice feels incomplete without closure. This case highlights how hidden rage and familiar faces can erupt into unimaginable tragedy. Number 4. Ariel Castro. Ariel Castro was born on July 10, 1960, in Dewey, Puerto Rico, to a poor family. His parents split when he was young, and he moved to Cleveland, Ohio, with his mother and siblings around age 6. They settled in a rough neighborhood on the west side. Castro attended Lincoln West High School, but dropped out in his junior year. He worked various jobs, including as a machinist and later as a school bus driver for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, starting in 1991. He married Figueroa in 1981, and they had 4 kids, 3 daughters and a son. But the marriage was violent. Figueroa accused him of abuse, including breaking her nose twice, cracking ribs, and causing a blood clot in her brain. She left him in 1996, taking the kids, and got a restraining order. Castro lived alone after that in his 2-story house at 2207 Seymour Avenue, a rundown property he bought for $12,000 in 1992. Neighbors knew him as a quiet guy who played bass in local bands, grilled out sometimes, and kept to himself. But behind those boarded-up windows and chained doors, he was building a house of horrors. The kidnappings started in 2002. On August 23, Michelle Knight, then 21, disappeared while heading to a foster care appointment. She got lost and asked Castro for directions at a store. He offered her a ride and a puppy for her son. Instead, he lured her to his house, tied her up with extension cords in an upstairs room, and began a decade of torment. Knight was raped repeatedly, almost daily, starved, beaten with barbells and vacuum cords. Castro impregnated her at least 5 times, but each time he forced miscarriages by punching her stomach, kicking her, or withholding food. She delivered 1 baby in a kiddie pool, but it didn't survive. Castro threatened to kill her if it died. Knight was kept in filthy conditions, chained to poles with only a bucket for a toilet. Less than a year later, on April 21, 2003, Amanda Berry, 16, vanished after her shift at Burger King, just a block from home. It was the day before her 17th birthday. Castro picked her up, saying his daughter worked there too, then took her to his house. He raped her that night and chained her in the basement with a helmet over her head to muffle screams. Berry was on TV news constantly, her mom holding vigils, but no one suspected the bus driver down the street. Like Knight, Berry endured constant assaults. In December 2006, she gave birth to a daughter, Jocelyn, in the house. Castro helped deliver her, cutting the umbilical cord with a knife. He let Berry raise the girl somewhat normally downstairs, but still controlled everything, using Jocelyn as leverage to keep Berry compliant. Then, on April 2, 2004, Georgina Gina DeJesus, 14, went missing while walking home from Wilbur Wright Middle School with Castro's daughter Arlene, who was her friend. Arlene last saw Gina getting into a van. It was Castro. He took her home, raped her in the garage, then chained her upstairs with Knight. The 3 women were kept separate most of the time, in different rooms, to prevent them from teaming up. DeJesus was beaten, raped hundreds of times, and also suffered forced miscarriages. The house was a prison, doors padlocked from outside, windows covered with boards and plastic, alarms on exits. Castro would leave for work, sometimes for days, leaving them with minimal food. He taunted them with news clippings of their disappearances, saying no one cared anymore. Neighbors heard screams, but thought it was rowdy parties or dogs. One time, a neighbor saw a woman banging on a window, but Castro explained it away. The nightmare ended on May 6, 2013. Castro left the inner front door unlocked by mistake while running an errand. Barry, with 6-year-old Jocelyn, kicked out the bottom of the storm door and yelled for help. Neighbor Charles Ramsey heard her, helped pull the door open, and Barry called 911. "I've been kidnapped, and I've been missing for 10 years. And I'm here. I'm free now." Police arrived, found Knight and DeJesus inside, emaciated and traumatized. The women were rushed to Metro Health Medical Center. Barry weighed 115 pounds, down from her pre-kidnap weight. Knight was 85 pounds, barely recognizable. Jocelyn was healthy, and Dina confirmed Castro as the father. The house was searched, chains, ropes, diaries the women kept secretly, documenting over 1,000 rapes combined. Castro was arrested that day at a McDonald's, calm as ever. He told police he wasn't a monster, that the women went with him willingly at first, but admitted holding them. The charges piled up fast. On May 9, Castro was indicted on kidnapping and rape. By July, it ballooned to 977 counts, 512 of kidnapping, 446 of rape, 7 of gross sexual imposition, 6 of felonious assault, 3 of child endangerment, and 2 of aggravated murder for forcing miscarriages in Knight, which Ohio law treats as killing unborn children. Prosecutors had DNA, medical exams showing old fractures and malnutrition, and the women's testimonies. To avoid the death penalty, Castro pleaded guilty on July 26 to 937 counts. 40 were dropped. At sentencing on August 1 in Cuyahoga County Court, Judge Michael Russo heard gut-wrenching statements. Knight faced Castro. "I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning." Barry and DeJesus sent family to speak for them. Castro rambled for 20 minutes, blaming the victims, saying it was consensual, that he was addicted to sex, had a rough childhood with abuse. The judge called him a coward, sentenced him to life without parole plus 1,000 years, consecutive. "You don't deserve to be out in our community," Russo said. Court costs, $1 million house demolition, funded by the city. The site became a garden. Castro entered Orient Reception Center on August 30, then transferred to Correctional Reception Center in Pickaway County. But on September 3, 2013, just a month in, he was found hanging in his cell at 9:18 p.m. Guards checked him at 8:52, but he used a bedsheet tied to the window. CPR failed. He was pronounced dead at 10:52 p.m. at Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. Autopsy ruled suicide, no foul play. He wasn't on suicide watch, though protocol said he should have been as a high-profile inmate. 2 guards were fired for falsifying logs. They claimed rounds every 30 minutes but didn't. Castro left a note blaming his actions on childhood sexual abuse, which his family denied. His estate went to court costs and victims' funds. The survivors rebuilt. Michelle Knight changed her name to Lily Rose Lee, wrote books like Finding Me, Advocates Against Abuse. Amanda Berry works as a missing persons advocate on FOX8 Cleveland, co-authored Hope with Gina. Gina DeJesus founded the Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children and Abducted, keeps a low profile. Jocelyn, now a teen, lives with Barry. The case exposed flaws in missing persons investigations. Knight's case was closed, assuming she ran away despite her age. Cleveland police reviewed protocols, added resources. Castro's brother and uncle disowned him, saying he shamed the family. In the end, Ariel Castro's crimes shocked the world, a reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, behind a school bus driver's smile. His quick death denied full justice, but the women's strength endures. Number 5. T.J. Lane. Thomas Michael Lane III, known as T.J. Lane, was born on September 19, 1994, in Chardon, Ohio, a small town about 30 miles east of Cleveland. His early life was rough from the start. His parents, Thomas Lane Jr. and Sarah Nolan, had a volatile relationship marked by domestic violence. His father had a criminal record, including assault, kidnapping, and attempted murder charges from incidents with other women. Lane's parents divorced when he was young, and he bounced between homes, living with his grandparents at times. He attended Lake Academy, an alternative school for at-risk kids, before transferring to Chardon High School. Reports from those who knew him painted a picture of a quiet, withdrawn teen who struggled with bullying, depression, and isolation. He had no prior violent record, but friends later said he posted dark messages on social media, hinting at anger and despair. Lane hunted with his uncle, learning to use guns, which would play into his later actions. On the morning of February 27, 2012, 17-year-old Lane walked into Chardon High School armed with a .22 caliber Ruger semi-automatic handgun that belonged to his uncle. He had taken a bus to school like any other day, but around 7:30 a.m. in the cafeteria where students gathered before classes, he opened fire. Lane targeted a table of students he knew casually. His first shot hit Daniel Parmertor, 16, in the head. Parmertor died later that day at the hospital. Next, he shot Russell King Jr., 17, who was pronounced brain dead the next day and taken off life support. Demetrius Hewlin, 16, was struck in the head while trying to flee and died 2 days later from his injuries. Lane also wounded 3 others. Nate Mueller grazed by a bullet in the ear, Joy Rickers shot in the buttocks as she ran, and Nick Walchak, who took bullets to his neck, arm, and back, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down and reliant on a wheelchair for life. The rampage lasted less than a minute, with Lane firing 10 rounds before chasing one victim down a hall. Assistant football coach Frank Hall confronted him, yelling for him to stop, and Lane fled the building into the woods. Chaos erupted at the school. Students barricaded classrooms, parents rushed to the scene, and SWAT teams searched the area. Lane ditched the gun and his jacket in the snow and kept running until he encountered a resident who convinced him to wait for police. He was arrested without resistance about 30 minutes after the shooting, still near the school grounds. In his initial statements, Lane admitted to the act but offered no clear motive. Investigators found no manifesto or specific grudge against the victims. Some were acquaintances from middle school, but it seemed random. Lane later told authorities he didn't know why he did it, claiming he just went crazy. A psychiatric evaluation diagnosed him with an emerging psychotic disorder, possibly schizophrenia, exacerbated by a family history of mental illness and his unstable upbringing. His defense argued he heard voices and had hallucinations, but prosecutors pushed for adult charges given the severity. Lane was initially held in juvenile detention, but waived his right to a hearing and was bound over as an adult in June 2012. He faced 3 counts of aggravated murder, 2 of attempted aggravated murder, and 1 of felonious assault. On February 26, 2013, almost a year to the day after the shooting, Lane pleaded guilty to all charges in Joga County Common Pleas Court, avoiding a trial. Sentencing came on March 19, 2013, before Judge David Fury. The courtroom was packed with victims' families, survivors, and media. What happened next shocked everyone and made international headlines. Lane entered wearing a white t-shirt with "Killer" scrawled in black marker across the front, which he had hidden under a dress shirt until unveiling it during the hearing. As families gave emotional victim impact statements, Dina Parmenter calling him a vile coward, Holly Walchak describing her son's lifelong pain, Lane smirked, rolled his eyes, and at one point flipped off the courtroom with both middle fingers. When given a chance to speak, Lane delivered a chilling, profane statement directed at the families. "This hand that pulled the trigger that killed your sons now masturbates to the memory. Fuck all of you." Gasps filled the room. Some relatives shouted back, others wept. Judge Fury sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms without parole, plus 37 years, calling the crimes breathtakingly cruel and Lane's behavior in court disgusting. The judge noted that Lane showed no remorse and seemed to relish the attention. Lane's attorney explained the outburst as a mental breakdown, but it didn't sway the court. Appeals followed. with Lane claiming ineffective counsel and that his guilty plea was coerced, but the Ohio Supreme Court upheld the sentence in 2016, ruling his actions demonstrated he understood the proceedings. Life in prison started at the Ohio State Penitentiary in Youngstown, a supermax facility. But on September 11, 2014, Lane escaped with two other inmates, Clifford Opperman and Lindsay Bruce, using a makeshift ladder from scavenged materials to scale a wall. They were free for about 5 hours before being recaptured hiding in woods near the prison. Lane faced additional charges for the escape, pleading guilty in 2015 and getting an extra 12 months, though it didn't change his life sentence. He was transferred to the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, a maximum security prison, where he remains today. In 2017, he lost another appeal, arguing his sentence was cruel and unusual for a juvenile, but courts cited the brutality and his age 17 status as sufficient for adult punishment under Ohio law. The Chardon shooting left lasting scars. The school installed new security measures, and the community holds annual memorials. Victims' families started foundations, the Daniel Parmenter Memorial Fund for scholarships. Russell King's family advocates for mental health awareness. Nick Walchak, despite paralysis, graduated college and works in adaptive sports. Lane, now in his late 20s, has reportedly adjusted to prison life, participating in programs but keeping a low profile. No apologies have come from him publicly. His case stands as a stark example of school violence, mental health failures, and how a teen's defiance can compound tragedy for grieving families. In Ohio's prisons, T.J. Lane serves as a reminder of unchecked rage and the irreversible cost it exacts. Number 6. Anthony Kirkland. Anthony Kirkland was born on September 13, 1968, in Cincinnati, Ohio, growing up in a tough environment marked by poverty and family instability. Little is publicly known about his childhood, but court records later revealed a history of abuse and early brushes with the law. As a young man, he worked odd jobs, but his life took a dark turn early. In 1987, at age 18, Kirkland raped and murdered his girlfriend Leola Douglas after she refused his sexual advances. He strangled her, set her body on fire in Avondale, and left it in a park. Arrested soon after, he pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and attempted rape, receiving a 7 to 25-year sentence. He served 16 years at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville before being paroled in 2004. Prison officials noted he completed programs but showed little remorse. Out on parole, Kirkland lived in halfway houses, worked as a cook, and seemed to reintegrate, but he violated terms with drug use and missed meetings. By 2006, he was off supervision and back in Cincinnati's underbelly. That's when the killings resumed. On May 3, 2006, 14-year-old Casonia Crawford sneaked out of her grandmother Patricia's house around 11 p.m., likely to meet friends. She never returned. Her body was found May 9 in a wooded area off a dead-end road in South Cumminsville, hidden under tires, heavily charred and decomposed. Autopsy showed she was strangled, teeth knocked out post-mortem, and her body burned with gasoline to destroy evidence. No sexual assault was confirmed due to decomposition, but prosecutors later argued attempted rape. Casonia was a typical teen, into music and school, living with her grandma after family issues. Just a month later, on June 15, 2006, the smoldering remains of Mary Jo Newton, 45, were discovered half a mile away in a similar secluded spot. Newton, a sex worker struggling with addiction, was strangled and burned. Kirkland later confessed to picking her up for sex, then killing her in a rage when she demanded more money. He dumped her body and torched it. Police interviewed Kirkland in 2007 after tips linked him to Newton. He admitted sex but denied murder. No charges then. 2 years passed. On June 13, 2008, scattered bones were found in woods off Pulte Street. Kimya Rollison, 25, another woman involved in prostitution and drugs. She was strangled, raped, and her remains burned and dispersed. Kirkland confessed he met her on the street, had consensual sex, but killed her after an argument over payment. The last victim was 13-year-old Esme Kenny on March 7, 2009. Esme, an aspiring dancer and straight-A student at School for Creative and Performing Arts, went jogging in Winton Hills, wearing her iPod and purple watch. She didn't return. Her mother reported her missing at 4:21 p.m. Searchers found her burned body the next day in woods near a reservoir, strangled, raped, with gym shoes and watch nearby. Kirkland had used her socks to strangle her, then burned the body. That day, police spotted Kirkland in the woods near the scene, sitting under trees. He gave a fake name, Anthony Palmore, but was arrested for trespassing. Blood on his clothes matched Esme's. In custody, over 12 hours of interrogation, Kirkland confessed to all 5 killings, Douglas in 1987 and the 4 recent ones. He detailed strangling them during or after sex, burning bodies to hide Dina. He claimed rage blackouts but showed little emotion, even drawing maps to remains. Detectives noted his calm demeanor, like recounting a routine. Indicted on 4 counts of aggravated murder for the 2006-2009 killings, plus specs for course of conduct, rape, and robbery. He pleaded guilty to murdering Newton and Rollison, getting 70 years to life. For the girls' aggravated murders, he went to trial in Hamilton County in 2010. Evidence included confessions, from Esme's body linking to him, witness sightings. Defense argued mental illness, PTSD from childhood abuse, drug addiction, but psychiatrists said he was competent, knew right from wrong. The jury convicted him on all counts after short deliberation. In penalty phase, mitigation included his abusive upbringing, father beat him, mother absent, and expert testimony on brain damage from trauma. But victims' families testified to their loss. Esme's mom on her daughter's dreams, Kasonia's grandma on the horror. Prosecutors highlighted brutality, burning alive or dead bodies, targeting vulnerable females. Jury recommended death for both girls' murders. Judge Charles Kubicki sentenced him to death on March 12, 2010, plus years for other charges. Appeals followed. Ohio Supreme Court affirmed convictions in 2014, but noted prosecutorial misconduct, comments calling the girls' murders freebies since he was already serving life. In 2016, court vacated death sentences, remanding for resentencing under RC 2929.06b. In 2018, new jury heard the case, recommended death again despite defense pleas for mercy citing abuse and remorse letters from Kirkland. Judge Megan Shanahan imposed death. Supreme Court affirmed in 2020, rejecting claims of unfair sentencing and proportionality issues. Kirkland, now 57, is on death row at Chillicothe Correctional Institution, execution date pending appeals. His case underscores parole failures and the cycle of violence, a man who killed again after release, leaving families shattered. Kasonia's grandmother Patricia still grieves. Esme's family started a foundation for arts education. Kirkland's confessions closed cases but offered no real why, just a pattern of rage and destruction. Number 7. James Worley. James Worley was born on April 8, 1959, in Delta, Ohio, a small rural town in Fulton County. Growing up on a farm, he had a seemingly ordinary childhood, but details are scarce. He attended Evergreen High School, played football, and worked manual jobs after graduating, farming, trucking, welding. Worley married young, had 2 daughters, but the marriage ended in divorce in the 1980s amid reports of his odd behavior. Neighbors described him as reclusive, living alone on a 20-acre property cluttered with junk cars, barns, and sheds. He collected scrap metal for income, but his life hid darker impulses. In 1990, at age 31, Worley attempted to abduct a 26-year-old woman named Robin Gardner while she biked near his home. He hit her with his truck, claiming it was an accident, then tried to force her inside, saying he wanted to make love to her. Gardner fought back, escaped, and flagged down help. Worley was arrested, convicted of abduction, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. He served 13 months before parole in 1993. The The judge called him a danger to women, but he returned to Delta under sex offender registration for a time. For years, Worley stayed under the radar, but suspicions lingered. In 1990, just months before the Gardner incident, 20-year-old Claudia Tinsley vanished from nearby Figley Township while walking home. Her case went cold, but similarities to Worley's MO raised questions later. He worked odd jobs, including as a school bus mechanic, but kept to himself. Then, on July 19, 2016, everything unraveled with the disappearance of Sierra Joffin. Sierra, 20, was a vibrant University of Toledo junior studying human resources, an athlete who ran cross-country in high school and loved animals. She lived with her boyfriend, Josh Kolasinski, in Metamora, and that evening, after work at a corn detasseling job, she went for a bike ride on the rural roads of County Road RS. She texted Josh at 6:45 p.m., saying she was heading home but never arrived. Josh and her family searched frantically, finding her bike abandoned in a cornfield around 9 p.m., with signs of a struggle, scuffed ground, a broken sunglasses lens, and her phone nearby. The community mobilized. Sierra's uncle, a local fire chief, organized searches. Tips poured in. Crucial evidence came from a motorcyclist's helmet cam footage showing a suspicious gray van near the site, license plate visible. It traced to Worley, who lived 3 miles away. Deputies visited him that night. He denied involvement, but had fresh scratches on his arms and face, plus a bruised hand. He claimed a bee sting caused the injuries. A search warrant for his property the next day uncovered horrors. In a barn, behind a false wall, was a hidden torture room, a 10x10 concrete space with carpet, restraints, handcuffs, duct tape, zip ties, a freezer stocked with women's underwear and bloody rags. Blood on a mattress matched Sierra's Dina. More blood in his van and on shovels. Worley was arrested July 22. Under questioning, he confessed after hours, leading authorities to Sierra's body, buried in a shallow grave in a cornfield off County Road 6, 4 miles from her bike. She had been bound, gagged with a motorcycle mask, and suffocated. Autopsy showed blunt force trauma to her head, likely from being struck. The motive? Worley said he saw her biking, decided to abduct her for sex, hit her with his van to stop her, then panicked and killed her when she fought. He admitted planning to hide her in the room, but buried her instead. Prosecutors believed it was premeditated, given the setup. The hidden room suggested more victims. Investigators linked items to unsolved cases, a bracelet possibly from Claudia Tinsley, though no Dina match. In 2000, another woman reported Worley trying to lure her into his van. A 1994 incident involved him exposing himself, but no other charges stuck. Sierra's case galvanized Ohio. Her family pushed for Sierra's law, enacted in 2018, creating a database for violent offenders like Worley, who fell through cracks after his 1990 conviction. Trial started July 2017 in Fulton County Common Pleas Court. Worley pleaded not guilty, his defense claiming mental illness, depression, anxiety from a 2015 farm accident that injured his hand. But experts found him competent. Evidence overwhelmed, confession video where he calmly described the acts, barn photos. Witnesses testified to his prior attempts. Sierra's family gave heart-wrenching statements. Her mom, Tara Ice, spoke of the bright light lost, Josh of their future plans. The jury convicted him August 1, 2017, on aggravated murder, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and more. In penalty phase, defense presented mitigators, abusive father, low IQ 89, but prosecutors stressed the brutality. Sierra fought hard, nails broken, defensive wounds. Jury recommended death after 4 hours. On August 15, 2017, Judge Jeffrey Robinson sentenced Worley to death, calling the crime heinous and Worley a predator. He added life terms for other counts. Appeals followed. Ohio Supreme Court heard arguments in 2020, with Worley claiming ineffective counsel and improper evidence admission. In 2022, they upheld the conviction, but vacated the death sentence due to the judge's failure to properly weigh mitigators like his mental health and childhood. Resentencing in 2023, a 3-judge panel rehe